I haven't blocked on my phone. I blocked myself from reaching out.
You can now block your your own contacts.
Yeah, it's an app that was actually created for like romance exes, so you're not tempted to booty call them or whatever. And but I used it for Shitty Chuck, because
it was the name.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally making this up. There's no way I would be tempted to talk to Chuck.
Is the name of the app What's Chuck?
Yeah, What's Chuck? It's called Shut the Chuck Up.
Citizens of Earth, welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
Neither one of us are Chuck. We are on Spotify and Content Made Right and what's the big one? Transistor and Amazon and Google and all these other places, I guess.
Wherever you find your podcasts.
Yes, and you can go listen to us. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram, it turns out. So, if you have any questions or you want to talk to us about local music and things like, cool record labels. And boy, are we going to talk about a cool record label today with our guest, who is Erik.
No, our guest is Dolly Sperry from Iowa City.
Who is
from Psyop and POKEY'S records. And all kinds of things.
Looking forward to talking to her. I think that is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about a couple of pieces of music news here. So check this out.
Okay.
Dozens of people might be looking back in anger at their decision to visit Britain's highest pub. After a dramatic winter storm and freezing, it prevented them from leaving for 3 nights. However, that's not the worst of it. Guests had originally turned up at the remote Tan Hill Inn in Yorkshire Dales, Northern England on Friday to enjoy an evening of music by an Oasis tribute band, which has the best tribute band name I've ever heard of. No Oasis.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I love that.
I probably would have went with Wonder Balls.
Wonder Balls. That would be great. The first Oasis album was called Definitely Maybe. So Noasis's tribute or debut album should be called Definitely Not.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
So there's photos of the guests doing a pub quiz, eating roasts and singing karaoke, sleeping on the floor of the pub with no blanket.
Back in my younger days, I don't think I could imagine a better thing than having to be locked in a bar for 3 days.
Yeah. Even if
like,
it was
you can sleep on the floor, and I'll be like, I already was planning on it before we got locked in.
Yeah. I mean, what about the added Oasis tribute band element?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that they played for 3 days? They're just like, well, we got nothing else going on. We're stuck here.
I bet they did play off and on for the 3 days, but I hope it wasn't all Oasis,
like maybe no means no.
Yeah.
No use for a name.
Yes means yes. They have to be the opposites, right?
Now that would be really interesting if members of Yes and No Means No started a band called Yes Means Yes.
That would be a terrible band.
I couldn't imagine that gelling at all.
I hate the idea even.
Yeah, I do too. But I mean, I had to say it because I have.
If it comes into your head, you have to say it. That's my personal motto.
Anyway, Gore helped reunite a fan with his lost prosthetic leg at a concert. Gore. I mean, they're from another planet. I mean, they're not even from Earth. That was really nice of them to do. Here's the thing, though. I don't understand. I thought they hated us humans.
Yeah, maybe. Geez, I don't know. That's a tough one. They do hate humans. Maybe they like prosthetic legs, though. And
yeah, but
without the host, the leg is kind of useless, kind of pointless.
Well, that's true, but I wonder, like, why didn't they just take? Well, never mind. I am going to say this though.
Mhm.
That is actually a really cool thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
in all honesty, like that is actually really, really cool. Like that they did that. They saw like a legit fan that was struggling with something like that. I couldn't imagine like having something like a prosthetic leg and losing it at a concert. That must be terrifying if you really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. That's really all I got for news, man. What do you say we talk to Dolly now?
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, today, as we teased you with last time, we have Dolly Sperry on. Dolly is honestly one of my dearest friends in town. Think we have a lot of fun together and play music together, and she's a sweetheart. Dolly is in currently Psyop, but has been in a lot of other things, and also runs POKEY'S Records that has 3 tapes out that I'm sure we'll get into. And actually, we've already reviewed on this podcast. So if you listen, you've already heard what we think about them, which, sorry, we were really mean about those records.
Well, so it's funny you say that. I'm sure that they were awesome reviews, whatever. I feel so silly because I totally was going to listen to that episode, which I'm sure is what everybody says, right? They're like, oh yeah. Yeah, I listened to it. But I was like, no. I was going to listen to it at the time. And then just today I was like trying to find that episode.
Oh,
and so I'm scrolling back through and I'm like, where the hell is it? And I'm like, and so that actually sort of divulges into a different thing, which I was going to say, which is, damn, y'all have covered a lot of ground, more than I thought, as far as the people that you've interviewed. I need to listen to a lot more of your podcast.
Yeah, you're in good company. Which is better than bad company.
Yeah.
Did talk mad shit on your tapes though, just for the record. So I was hoping you listened so we could get in a big fight about it.
No, I wish. But no, I was like, I definitely was like, damn, I want to know what sort of like vibe, whatever I'm like going in looking for, or just like the ability to be like, hey, I thought it was cool that you noticed this or this about, but I am going in here completely fresh.
Well, we noticed all the cool stuff.
Right.
And all the good stuff, and we didn't notice any bad stuff. I wanted to introduce Dan to Dolly. I don't know if you guys
hi, Dolly.
have met before. Okay.
My name is Dan.
My name is Dolly.
Hey, awesome. There you go.
Yeah, very good possibility that I may have ran into you in the past. I played in a band called Abnormal Man.
Oh, I've seen y'all.
You've seen us, okay?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I know. Cool. Abnormal Man's cool. Yeah, that's what's up.
Thank you. We try to be.
We try to be cool.
That's actually our whole reason why we picked up instruments, was to be cool. Nothing else.
That's how it is for all of us.
That and to fight between band members.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, the reason for picking up instruments leads me to my first actual question for you, Dolly.
Nothing else you actually meant to ask?
Yeah, right. No, this is it. This is my one question. Where did you grow up, and what got you into playing music? So sort of like your early history playing music.
Damn, I'm going to try to summarize this as best as I can, because okay. this one is one that can usually get turned into just a very long-winded thing. Okay, shortest version. I grew up in Fairfield, Iowa, which is about an hour south of Iowa City. My mom is a painter, illustrator, artist. My dad is a classically trained cellist, and I lived in Fairfield. Well, firstly, I was specifically, my parents got together in Fairfield, because of the meditation community that existed there. They both like individually had their own reasons for coming to Fairfield. And then they both had been in past relationships. My mom had 2 sons. My dad had a daughter. They started seeing each other through the school, actually, that both my brothers and my sister were going to. And then I came into the picture, and pretty shortly after that, my parents split up. Lived in Fairfield for I think about 4 more years, and then I actually moved out to Oregon. The only reason this is a pertinent part of the story is because after moving to Oregon with my mom, I had known for a while, like been going to gigs when I was a kid, and had known for a while that I wanted to play the drums. That was the one I had decided. I was like, I want to play the drums. There had been a piano in my house, had a toy guitar. So I definitely, because of the influence of my parents, had a want for music. But it wasn't until moving to Oregon when I was about 7 that started to like manifest. I firstly saved up enough money to buy my first drum set through like saving everything that I possibly could from babysitting, mowing lawns and random stuff. And I'd never had lessons on like a continual basis, but like there were, because neither of my parents had any money. But from time to time, it would be like I would be able to take a lesson here or a couple lessons here or something like that. And then my dad ended up moving out to Oregon after both of my parents. It was very funny. Both of my parents went through their phases of being like in the meditator movement. And then by the time I was like sort of realizing what was going on, they were getting pretty disaffected with the whole thing and like starting to distance themselves from it. And so my dad eventually followed suit to Oregon just because he was like, I want to be able to spend time around you and not feeling that place and whatever. And most of my childhood, music had been in the background, but he had really tried in whatever way he possibly could to, support this family that he had, and obviously had just a terrible time doing it. He was like a phone salesman at one point, had a various number of different jobs, but when he moved to Oregon, he had been indexing at the time for books. And it was this very random occurrence where someone had been really inspired by his cello playing and had been like, you know what? Like, I'm going to get you a cello because you don't have enough money to have a cello. Like, I want you to have this instrument at least because I want you to write this piece for me and I want you to play this event for me. But like you get a cello out of it. Yeah, pretty sweet deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he had been living in Oregon a little while and had recently come back from this trip to Fairfield and had the cello just like in his car. And we were going to go to a park and like play catch or some shit. And I was like, that kind of sounds lame. Do you want to show me that cello though? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, sure. So he like sat down and started playing, and then people started throwing money in his case.
Oh, wow.
And I think something clicked for him there. He was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't be indexing anymore. Like I can just spend all my time out on the street playing and people will just throw money at me. Doesn't work actually as well as it sounds, but that is actually what he continued and still does to this day. He is a professional like street musician. He's toured around and lived out of his van since then, but like pretty solidly for the past like 10 years, he's just like the dude that plays the cello in Ashland, Oregon, which is pretty wild.
That's cool. That's a great story, man. That's inspiring, really. That's amazing.
Well, so yeah, and it like definitely, I had my own aspirations towards music, whatever. But it was definitely inspirational because it wasn't necessarily a positive thing. Like it meant that he was like broke most of the time, and that like, you know, I wasn't always really able to see him as much as I would have, you know, as much as both of us would have liked. But like,
sure,
I knew that ultimately he was happy, and like that had definitely a very lasting effect on like personally how I felt about the creation and like moral standard of music, if that makes any sense.
For sure.
So started out playing the drums when I was, I think about 8 is when I got that drum set. And then I, at a certain point, was like, I really can't write any songs on here. This kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I sold my drum set for Epiphone.archtop, Sunbursts, and sold the drum set, used that money, and both of my parents chipped in too, so that I could get that guitar, which like thinking back on it, like obviously having bought and sold so many instruments, I'm like, damn, that's like a pretty shitty guitar to have to go. But yeah, we didn't have any fucking money. Like, but it is funny thinking back to that and being like, damn, I really had to pull out all the stops for that guitar.
Oh yeah, no, I can relate completely. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, I got that thing and started messing around with that. That guitar mostly was me just like kind of figuring out chords and riffs and like what all of that stuff really meant. And then I moved back to Fairfield when I was, I think like 12-ish. I started playing guitar when I was 11. Then right around when I was like 12 or 13, I moved back to Fairfield. But right before I moved back, my dad got me an acoustic guitar, which was the first like decent acoustic guitar that I had. And he was like, you know, like I got this sort of on a trade from my friend. Like he wanted me to make some music for him, and he had this guitar, and it's your birthday. Like, I just wanted to give you this. It wasn't until I had gotten that guitar that I really started experimenting with writing music. And it was also right around that time when my sister had like an old hand-me-down iPhone that had no service, that was just ancient. And she was like, well, you can just use this with Wi-Fi. And so I was like, oh, okay. And that was the sort of the first voice recorder that I had. You know, I had messed around with like tape players and stuff growing up, but that was the first thing that I was like trying to catalog the stuff that I was making on a regular basis. And I don't really know. It's funny. A lot of people talk about like, oh, I was talking to this musician. They just said, record everything on your phone or whatever. And maybe something specifically inspired that. But I think that is really the first, I can't really remember anything that sparked that. It just made sense to me. I was just like, I need to remember these ideas that I'm having, which is pretty ridiculous and bizarre. After I started writing music, it was pretty soon after that I figured out like, okay, I want to be playing music with other people. Like I had always wanted to be, but it wasn't until I was like, okay, this make sense to me, and I didn't have anyone to play with. So I actually recorded a demo called Drummer Face, which still exists. It's definitely very embarrassing in some ways, but it exists, and I recorded that, I think, when I was like 14, something like that. It was all recorded on like GarageBand, and then pretty soon after I did that, I finally found people to play in a band with me, and have been pretty much since I was 16. I've been playing in bands ever since then.
Nice.
Cool.
So was that in Fairfield then that you met those other players?
Yeah. It was a funny smattering of people. I was like, I want to start a punk band. Like I want to start a punk band. This is what like I want it to sound like. That was the first band I was in. That band was called the Punk-Ass Kids.
Punk-Ass Kids. At that age, Dolly, what made you say, I want to start a punk band specifically? Was it because you heard some punk music before that, or was it just kind of an idea that you just had floating in your head?
Well, so yeah, that's a whole different trajectory, which is the whole musical lineage. I guess the crash course is like, early on started with rock music. First, it was like Beatles and Rolling Stones, but also, funny enough, right around the same time as I was getting introduced to the Beatles, I was also getting introduced to the Clash, like strangely, circumstantially. That kind of kept going, where I was like, okay, now I want to hear some Cream and some Black Sabbath, and Led Zeppelin, got so hooked on Led Zeppelin and the Who, and was just like, and then in my cousin's basement, Green Day was like, that was the thing. And they were playing American Idiot on a little boombox while we were playing foosball, and I was like, this is the sickest thing. And that was earlier than some of the like classic rock stuff that I was listening to. But I heard that for sure, and I was like, okay, I really dig that. Really dig the like classic rock stuff. As soon as I started finding music that I was like, oh, I like this, I pretty quickly wanted to explore. I wanted to know about as much other stuff adjacent to it as I could. It was right about middle school. That was for sure the biggest musical bump of like trying to find as much new music as possible. And I started, we're still talking like mid to late 2000s. So indie rock was like really big. My cousin's dad was a DJ on a radio station. And so he had been showing my cousin a bunch of like Strokes and Vampire Weekend and stuff like that. And so I started being aware of that stuff. And it was interesting because right around that time, I was like, damn, yes, I love this. It's both current, because you grow up listening to classic rock and you're like, fuck, the ship has sailed here, man.
Right.
Like, and it's also deified so hard that it's just like, I have to become, larger than life to ever achieve the things that like I aspire towards. And indie rock stuff definitely started to make that like attainable. And I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. Like, from what was a very innocent, like, exterior perspective, it seemed like, oh, these people are just like writing songs, forming bands, and like, DIY, whatever, like making it happen themselves, which was like pretty much the only experience growing up in a small town I had was just being able to try to like do stuff myself. But pretty quickly in the process of exploration, I sort of started touching back on punk stuff. First like Clash, Sex Pistols, Ramones, but then very quickly like Black Flag, Minor Threat, and like started going like, oh, and then like, you know, you start to kind of like get a vibe of like what these indie rock bands are actually all about, and you find out they're actually on like big labels and stuff, and you just start going, the cogs start moving in your head, and you're kind of like, okay, all right, there's something else going on here. And I didn't realize like punk stuff that I had been listening to, or at least aware of for such a long time, that I was already like sort of comfortable with, was like sort of the exact thing that I was almost like looking for.
Right.
And it's sort of, as soon as I like made that connection, I latched on so hard. It was just like, give me all the punk music, anything, just, I want it all. And I mean, to be fair, like at the same time of exploration, I was also listening to like my brother, super into like 80s 90s hip hop, and so I was just like listening to so much like gangsta rap and shit, while also like still like comfortable with indie rock and like listening to some pop punk, starting to like get a taste for metal. You know, definitely enjoying like Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and Van Halen, starting to be like, okay, like I understand more what's going on here. Kind of starting to get into blues and like soul too. Just like definitely a very exploratory, like, but that's for sure. The middle school to like early high school is for sure starting to be like, oh, this is what I want. Punk music is what I want. And that's for sure why that was the first band that ended up happening.
Yeah, sure. What kind of led to the formation of POKEY'S Records?
The reason I started a label was pretty straightforward. Been living in Iowa City for the past 5 or 6 years, and moved up here specifically to play in bands and do music. And I had the funny experience of, you know, I moved here and there was so much more of a scene than what I expected. I was sort of thinking moving from Fairfield to Iowa City was going to be a stepping stone to a bigger city. And then I moved here and the exact stuff that I was looking for was here. And there was also like such a surprising, like rich history of stuff that I was like kind of really stoked on. And also specifically when I was moving to town, it was on the tail end of like Supersonic Piss and Los Voltage. And then Nerve was going at that time too. And then like, and I had like just barely missed, like there were some reunion shows happening when I moved to town. I would just barely miss that. But like when I moved to town, we still had Jail Bus was still going. Cone Trauma was on the fritz, and Beyond Peace was going. And for having not been in a scene of like any people that were at all even slightly into there were not like, there were no punks in Fairfield. There was one bartender who was like my friend, but like it didn't exist. I ended like the people that I ended up playing music with, it ended up going in more of like an indie rock direction, because like that was the stuff that was popular in Fairfield at that time. But like finally I thought I was going to have to go to like one of the coasts or something to actually get to hang out with people that I could like talk to about any of these bands that I was like really, really stoked on. And then to have people like yelling at me about all these bands that I should know about, I was just like, this is absolutely incredible. But what was interesting is, so that happened upon me moving here, and I was like, wow, this is pretty wild. And then over the years of living here, with the natural ebb and flow, but also the realization looking back on that like that was still a pretty weak point within the grander scheme of things in this, comparatively to, you know, how it's been at some points within its history. I mean, even as like recently as like 10 Grand being a band, like there was way more hardcore and stuff going on in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
Than when I moved to town. And it very quickly went from me being like wide-eyed and like, whoa, this place is like, has so many opportunities, to like eventually the fact that I gave a shit and like wanted people to be coming to shows and wanted there to be spaces for shows, people like looking to me or being like, whoa, it's so crazy that you're passionate about this stuff. What a part of the community, which is, you know, ridiculous in its own regard. But I very quickly was just like, God damn it. Like, and especially over the years of sort of waiting around, being like, okay, well, this is one of the down years. Next year, more bands are going to start and it's going to be like more happening. And like eventually the starting of the label was literally me just being like, all right, fuck it. You know what? If there's like so little heavy music. I have these two bands that never, because of like circumstantial bullshit, never saw the light of day. I was like, I'm going to start a hardcore band. I'm going to completely write all the parts, completely do the demo myself, because I know how I want it to sound. And then I'm also going to release these other two projects that have never seen the light of day, which they were cool. I put time and energy into these. I think the other people did. I think it sucks that so much music in Iowa City, because it does just like goes completely undocumented, and it exists everywhere, but it's like there's a bunch of stuff that definitely looking towards the future I would like to re-release or release for the first time. To name a few, like Way of Dusty Death, such a good band. That there are some phenomenal sounding recordings of that band that exist that I have. I hope to re-release that. Cool. I hope to release that, because it's like the fact that it just like doesn't exist anymore. Like that was such a sick project, and it's not unless someone does it. Joker Gas I would really, really like to reissue, but a lot of the members of that band probably would not be super stoked on that. But I would be, because it's sick. And then what else? Juicy 66 for sure. I would like to. There's a really good Juicy record that I would love to release. And I bet I could even get the okay from like most of the members. There's also some like old stuff I want to reissue. I'm very good friends with Erik Creech.
Pent Up Aggression.
And we talked about re-releasing the Pent Up Aggression tape.
It's a good tape.
Also, there is a mysterious unknown full length that they have that very few people have heard, that is really good and sounds better than that tape, that I might be able to do something with.
Nice.
But yeah, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to start this band. I'm going to start this label and try to do the thing where it's like, here is this thing. If it inspires you, start a band, you know? And like, if you have a band, maybe I can help get that stuff on a hard piece of media so it doesn't just get lost in the abyss.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you bring up Erik, because I was thinking about that when you were talking about that sort of ebb and flow of the scene and different eras and things like that. It's like, no matter how old you are, there's always someone that's 10 years older than you and lived through a different scene completely and knows all these other cool bands that came before. And I just think I think that's a lot of fun to have that sort of lineage that gets passed down, from one person, one sort of townie to the next, like we have a lot of transient members of the scene, but then usually there's somebody that's been here for 5 to 10 years and they know a lot of what's going on. So
yeah,
I think that's a really cool thing here.
I love it. I love so much of the history of like all of the stuff that has happened in the past, and also like all of the stuff that is yet to come.
For sure.
It does really seem funny to me because I don't think of myself too much of like a musical historian person or whatever, but I do genuinely really, really love it. And it makes me feel so silly and nerdy that I'm like constantly like repping these old bands, being like, why do you not know about this music? This is like really important. These people be
right.
And it's really cool that you're such great friends with Joe, because as far as I'm concerned, a lot of the stuff that Joe Millick has done has sort of brought a lot of this together. Like his understanding of the history of Iowa punk, I'd put it up against anyone. And that's,
I mean, it's
pretty amazing.
It continues to inspire me. It definitely inspired me to start this label. I mean, amongst so many other things, it's just like both of us definitely share a strong love for Minor Threat and the whole like McKay philosophy of documentation. It's the only reason, like there's so much agency within punk. It's so fleeting. It's so of the moment. And it's like, it's so easy for it to just get completely lost to the sands of time. And it's so cool. And the coolest shit about it is that there's plenty of stuff that's like really cool that has just been completely lost to the abyss.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. So much punk, just like you can play the historian game through any scene ever. And I do enjoy that too, finding obscure like 80s hardcore death metal or whatever. But just today I was hitting up someone that used to live in the scene here that used to be in bands actually with Joe, being like, hey man, do you have this record? And do you have this record? And I'm like, oh yeah, I got a copy laying around. I'm hard up for cash, but maybe I'll trade you some stuff. And I'm just like, damn, this is hilarious. Like these records that seriously, and I mean, you look them up on Discogs, and the whole trip was there wasn't any on Discogs right now. And I was like, fuck, I gotta get those two. It's Nerve Life is the 7-inch, and then These Needles, the full length. I really, really wanted. And neither of them were on Discogs when I was looking. There might be a Nerve Life copy that just got thrown up there recently, but like they're selling on there for like $3 to $5. No one it's garbage. It's local garbage music. But like to me, that holds such a like special place, specifically in my heart, and like what
that's,
and I'm like unfamiliar with a lot of these names that are being brought up. This is really interesting to hear that.
Well, it is sort of scene specific stuff, and it like I always think about that. I'll see pictures of people I know on tour, right? And there'll be like a photo of a basement, and I'll just look around and I'll be like, everyone in that basement is experiencing their scene right at this moment, exactly like everyone in my town in the basement watching a punk show. And it's just like, it's so fun to think about. And each of those people is probably in a band, and they have their own long sordid history and incestuous band lineups and in scene fighting. And like on one level, it makes you feel small and unimportant. And on another level, it makes you feel like totally unified in this underground punk thing that seems to be like almost its own living organism in the country. You know what I mean? If that's not too heady, I don't know.
No, absolutely. It's a living organism for sure. And it's also so funny to see like how these weird ebbs and flows exist. Something else that was very inspirational to me, or at least had a certain impact, was like, even once you get into punk, it's very easy to get caught up with the old stuff. Specifically, when I was in Iowa City, starting to be in like hardcore bands and be involved in a scene of like other punks, I started to become aware of the weirdo hardcore stuff that existed, like Bib or Gag, or I don't know, there's like the Lumpy and the Dumpers. That's like Seattle stuff. There was stuff on the coasts. There's that band Warthog, that it's all like, and it's funny because it's all of it is very like hype punk for sure, where it's just like somehow these bands that are just like goobers like us, just like they're able to like hype themselves, or they're like scenes able to like hype themselves up, and then somehow these like dorky ass, I mean, they're cool though too. Like right. Obviously they put in the time and they put in the effort and they tour and whatever, but it's very funny. But like that stuff was inspirational for sure, because it was like current punk that I was like, whoa, this is cool that this is coming out right now. And like even to the point now, like that scene, that wave of stuff still exists in some way, but definitely not in the how influential of a way it existed. And it's pretty bizarre how that had such an effect. And it's the same thing we're talking about. I started this label because I want there to be more punk bands. I want there to be more hardcore bands. I want to put out their music.
Sure.
I want that to exist in Iowa. I want that to be, I don't want it to be something where I'm like, I feel like I'm searching for this shit. And I think that's possible. But it's exhausting for sure.
Oh yeah, I can totally imagine. I love how you're coming at this from like almost like an archive perspective, like the whole label thing. I think that's really admirable.
I mean, yeah. I appreciate that. I also like, it's archival, and it's also like, I truly do want to hype up the stuff that currently exists. And it's funny because I've already started having people be like, well, this stuff doesn't really make sense for you to label, which is definitely true in some cases. But like, as much as I would love to only put out hardcore tapes and like metal, like I'm definitely going to put out other stuff. I'm already planning to put out a noise tape of my friends, and it's also not only going to be local. I have a band from Springfield that wants me to put out their tape, and like there are current hardcore bands too. I just had the funny experience. Erik, you were talking about Milik is having the down low on the newest punk shit. Yeah. And like, sure enough, like he definitely gets out of the swing of things sometimes, and sometimes I'm able to beat him to it. But just like the other night, I was talking with we were both talking with a group of friends, and they're like, oh yeah, Dose from Des Moines. I'm like, what's up with that? And he's like, oh yeah, I know about Dose. I already ordered their tape. And I'm like, son of a bitch, for real? Like you ordered I'm actually to their show on the 19th and ask them if they want me to put out some music for them.
Nice. That's cool.
Awesome.
Justice Fetish that's out of Des Moines. I'm trying to put out some music for them.
Yeah, they're great.
Really, really like that to happen. They're also just like really solid people. I love all of those people as well.
Hey, speaking of shows, you're putting on a show this Saturday, right?
Yeah. Amusingly enough, not punk music. It is really bizarre. I do genuinely love so much music, and I'm also just like passionate about so much music. I think this Spotify rap stuff is so corny, but I think that it said that I listened to like 100 genres this past year.
Yeah.
And that's totally about on point. Yeah, this show coming up Saturday, December 11th is a mixture of synth pop, indie rock stuff, and then also noise.
Mm-hmm.
The one band, A Picture of Water, is my friend Vera Devora, who's come through town before. Really, really good, from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And then Emma Linus is, my friend Marina's friend. And that's very like dream poppy, synth poppy stuff.
Cool.
And then Huxley Maxwell, like found sound stuff from Des Moines. It's like lo-fi, kind of indie rocky, kind of folky. Reminds me of like Granddaddy or Microphones or Sparkle Horse a little bit. And then Haunter is going to be playing my friend's noise project. So good.
Nice. Yeah, one of my favorites.
Sounds like it's going to be a really interesting event. Where's that at, Dolly?
That's at Wild Culture Kombucha Lounge.
Oh, okay. I've been there before.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. They switched ownership recently, and the new owner is very pumped. Shout out to Kyle Crossett for letting us have shows. It makes a huge difference. There are an unfortunate lack of spaces for shows right now. It's pretty much down to like Gabe's, which is pretty hit or miss. It's not always easy to book there. I run a show space, but it's, especially throughout the pandemic, been pretty hard to like maintain and like have a good idea of what makes sense and what doesn't. I think we have a show coming up in January that's going to be at my show space called Purgatory. I don't have all the details on that show yet.
Cool. Let me know when you do.
I will. Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. What else?
I guess Trumpet Blossom, right?
Trumpet Blossom. Yeah. Totally. But it's like, to me, it's like Gabe's and Trumpet Blossom are pretty much those are the places that you can have DIY shows. Right. It is very, very cool that the Kombucha Lounge exists.
Yeah.
And to anyone listening, if you have a space, we'll bring our PA system to your space.
Hell yeah.
You know, I love making shit happen.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Thank you so much
for being with us. And check out POKEY'S records and check out Psyop. And
the one other thing, if I may add, just to end this, is in the same vein as me saying, like, please start a venue in your house, in your attic, in your garage, wherever. I will help you with a PA. I will help you with whatever you need. In that same vein, start a punk band.
Yeah.
Start a hardcore band, start a metal band, start a noise project, you know? Yeah. Like if you can't play an instrument, it sounds like a cop-out, but noise is a great way, great way to start getting inspired and artistic. Just do it straight up. Like, just please. I'm sick of booking the same fucking bands over and over again.
Yeah. And also Dolly and I will be in your band. So
Yeah,
said,
probably.
All right. Well, again, Dolly, thanks so much. And I will talk to you soon. All right.
Sounds
Yes,
good.
this has been
All right.
really awesome. Have a good night,
Yeah.
Dolly.
And now it's time for the upcoming show calendar thing. Jesus Christ. Okay. the local show calendar. Here we go. So tonight, Thursday, the 9th, Druids, Greg Wheeler, and the Poly Mall Cops and Glass Ox at the Gas Lamp in Des Moines. Yeah, Friday. We have at Sutliff Cider the Sneezy Dollars, whom I'm friends with, and they play bluegrass. And so if you're into bluegrass and cider, then you should go see them play. Then we have Jason Wall Smith, Joel Sires, and Andy Fleming. That is at XBK in Des Moines. I think that's all sort of like singer-songwriter, indie rock kind of stuff. Yeah. Then we have Mary Lattimore and Walt McClements. This is a Feed Me Weird Things show, and that's going to be put on at the Old Englert Theater. I'm actually going to be at this one, so if you see me, you should say hi. Mary Lattimore is a harpist, so that's pretty cool.
Cool.
And Walt McClements is an accordionist and multi-instrumentalist, so that should be a really interesting, strange show. Then we have 93 and Alive and Snakehouse Records presents Fucked Up Bash. All right. And this is like a hip hop show, and it seems to be a little edgy, maybe even crossing over into some horror core kind of stuff. So, and some of these people are local, so that's why I'm including it. It's Snake Lucci, Schwem, ATM, Keith White, Late Street, True Eddie, King Serp, Nick's Kiss, and DJ Skyro on the ones and twos, which is kind of like when you watch the Weather Channel and they say your weather on the eights. Then we have Stephanie Catlett and Dave Helmer of Crystal City. That's going to be at the Trumpet Blossom Cafe. And then, last but not least, we have Good Morning Midnight, Acid Legs, and Haploid at the Gas Lamp in Des Moines. All of those are tomorrow night, December 10th. So a lot of things going on. On Saturday the 11th, River City Collective presents 5 a.m.'s first annual holidays celebration. Now, 5 a.m. I've not listened to, but a friend at work, Devin, told me about them, and she said they're awesome. So I'm gonna tell you about them. But it's House of Animals, the 42s, Divide the Fall, and 5 a.m. That's going to happen at the Skylark in Quad Cities.
Yes, it is.
Then we have a show, the show that Dolly is putting on that we talked about. It's A Painting of Water, Emma, Linus, Huxley Maxwell, and Haunter. That's happening at Wild Culture Kombucha in Iowa City. Again, these are all on the 11th. Then we have a classic local metal band, Dystrophy. I even played with these guys a long time ago. They're going to be with Undisclosed and Rat Catcher. That's going to be at the Classic Event Center, which looks like, basically in the Cedar Rapids area. I don't know. I've never been to Classic Event Center, but that's where it is. And then we have the Hootin' Hollers at Gabe's. Dead Coast presents. Now, the Hootin' Hollers are from Missouri, but I used to play music a little bit with a person called Banjo Kelly, and Banjo Kelly is in the Hoot and Hollers. So I still think this is kind of local, because they did live here. So it's kind of like a rock and roll blues kind of, almost, I don't know, rhythm and blues, hard rhythm and blues with a big old baritone sax and stuff. So it's pretty cool. That's happening at Gabe's, and that's all I got. But that's a lot,
Yeah, that's
for one weekend.
definitely a lot of choices there for sure.
So yeah, anything from industrial metal to harp to some saxophone rhythm and blues. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
Bluegrass, all kinds of stuff. Just everything. So,
Everything is kind of going on there. I didn't even, I didn't even realize that Dystrophy was still making music.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I remember they played at the Minglewood Coffee House in downtown Muscatine.
That's where I played with them. Probably the same show we're thinking of.
Yeah. The only reason why I remember that is because I saw a flyer for it somewhere. I didn't actually go to the show. I was, I don't know. I never made it down to the Minglewood, dude. It's weird. You would think that as soon as I discovered like that I was into that sort of thing, you would have thought that I would have just been like, oh, this is my place.
Yeah. It was a cool place. Cool place for 16-year-olds to smoke.
Yeah. Well, I think
besides the truck stop, I guess.
Yeah. Part of the the truck stop.
Yeah.
Many nights under a moon were spent there.
It's a nice
I don't know. There's like this weird, like series of memories that I have of that truck stop.
And then it became a strip club that featured exclusively people I went to high school with.
No, really?
Apparently. I never went, but.
Well, I went there once and it was to deliver a pizza to one of the strippers. I'll tell you what, a lot of bizarre stories with delivering food. Like,
oh man,
quite a few things actually.
New podcast.
The delivery podcast.
Yeah. Who did you deliver for? We can cut it out or bleep it. Happy Joe's?
No, that's okay. No, it wasn't Happy Joe's. It's Pizza Ranch.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
I started at Pizza Ranch during their grand opening in Muscatine. Actually, that same summer was when the original location on Park Avenue burned down. And I had just gotten in. I had just started my shift, and I went to go deliver a couple of pizzas, like at 4:00 in the afternoon or something. And I had to drive past Happy Joe's. I'm like, holy shit, it's on fire.
Wow.
Like, it was the weirdest thing. And then I came back and I told everyone in the kitchen, Happy Joe's is on fire. And they're like, what? And it was kind of interesting because it was pretty funny because my manager was like, well, that means that we're going to get a lot of business. And he certainly wasn't lying. Like, everyone who had planned to order from Happy Joe's, because this was on Park Avenue, and South End Happy Joe's won't deliver to Park Avenue or any of the. So, yeah, we ended up like taking a lot of like replacement orders that otherwise would have been ordered by Happy Joe's customers.
They were like, I'll have a barbecue and a Nacho Joe, and a BLT. And you were like, wrong place, bro.
Yeah, wrong place. Like, it's on fire.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to go into a fire and get these pizzas?
Drive your ass to South End.
Call South End.
They got a goddamn drive-up window.
Well, yeah, but I live on the other end of town. It's like, well,
take the 6 minutes and drive to South End.
Drive.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, we're not living in Chicago, you know?
Oh, boy.
Happy Joe's.
Happy Joe's.
Yeah, I remember those old like.
I just love singing the song. It's a good
Was that
song.
really like the commercials? I don't remember that.
Happy Joe's. No, that's not. They're like, and they were like, Happy Joe's. Yeah.
I remember though those commercials, the commercials from like the early 90s were very effective at making me hungry. Because they would like show like all of the pizzas and they would have like all these like neon colors like describing each pizza, like the Matador, and it was
that's a
good. And I was just like, oh damn, you know,
we gotta stop talking about pizza.
I don't think I ever had the Matador. Yeah, let's stop talking about it.
I lost my voice singing Happy Joe's anyway, so probably have to.
That's the end of it, ladies and gentlemen.
Probably have to call it a night.
So my takeaway from this episode is two things.
Yes.
Number one, never order a pizza from a place that is on fire. Because you're not going to get that pizza.
No.
And number two, that Erik should be doing commercial jingles.
That's my life's dream. No joke.
Yeah. No, they would be an awesome job.
Cartoon voices and jingles. If I could make a living doing that, oh my gosh.
I would love to do cartoon voices.
All right.
Yeah, folks.
Right,
thank you for listening to my ramble. So Erik wants to be a voice actor and I want to be a SoundCloud rapper. If anybody can help us out, please do so.
Yeah. We're begging, folks.
We're begging at this point.
Sick of going to work.
Yeah. None of us want to do that.
Work is for suckers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I say.
That's why we do this. Everybody else is suckers.
Yeah, you're all suckers making money, paying bills like a bunch of suckers. We just live in filth.
Yeah. Look
for free. All we have is a microphone and a computer to record on.
Yeah, exactly. That's it for free. We don't have to pay for any of the stuff.
Yeah. I don't owe anyone anything, and I have nothing.
Yeah, oh my gosh. We're giving each other high fives through the computer screen right now.
Yep. And when we high five, dust clouds come off of it because we're covered in filth.
All right, everyone.
That's how poor we are.
That's how poor we are. Have a good night, everyone.
We're dusty poor.
Dusty poor. Ooh, yeah.
Oh my God.
We're
okay.
Poor as, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Have a good night. Dun, 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 dun.
What song is that?
It was supposed to be like some indie thing.
Oh, okay. All right. Da, da, ba, ba, bum, bwamp. Is that right?
Wow, wow, wow,
wow. This is our last episode, folks.
Oh
my God. Okay. Woo.
Give me all the punk music, anything. Just I want it all.